afternoon, collaborators. It's a new day, Monday. New week. I'm always excited. I'm the opposite of most people. I'm excited about Mondays because it gives us a new opportunity that we have to accept as a blessing, right? And so I'm excited. I always have done the show on Monday early in the morning. And so today is a new day with a new guest I'm excited to have. So welcome to the Ultimate F.A.N podcast. As you recall, F.A.N is an acronym for Friends, Accountability, Network. And so I bring my friends in my network who are amazing people and highlight them. Now, this is Men's Health Awareness Month, number one, but it's also Father's Day this month. And so as usual, per usual, I wanted to bring on some fathers who are doing some great things in the community, but also with their children. I wanted to highlight some fathers. And I was able to bring on this guest who I have watched from afar for quite some time, probably 2 years now. And he supports a lot of entrepreneurs, but not just entrepreneurs. He supports a lot of people in the communities, very service driven. I believe he told me that service is his entrepreneurship, and I love that. And so we're going to bring him on right now, Mr. Danya Perry. Did I say your name correctly? Is it Danya or Danya?
Danya. It's just like Tanya, but with a D. So I used to say that all the time.
Okay. I love it. Danya sounds better than Danya, but if it was Danya, of course, I'd have to just go with that.
I appreciate that. Shout out to all the Danyas.
All the Danyas out there, yeah. But Mr. Danya Perry, who works with equity and inclusion, who does some beautiful things in the community, please share with our audience who you are in your own words.
Well, listen, first, I really appreciate the opportunity to be in the presence of greatness, Kimberly. And also I appreciate this podcast because it's about getting the information out and connecting. As you say, it's the network, and one of the things that I found in all of my my experiences is that, our network truly is sort of dictated based upon our experiences and where we want to go.
Yeah.
We have to always expand out our networks and meet new people to then expand it out a little bit more. So
absolutely.
I'm at the Raleigh Chamber and I serve two interesting roles. So at the Raleigh Chamber, there are actually 4 different divisions, if you will. There's an entity that focuses in on regional transportation. There's a group in a division that focuses in on entrepreneurship in Raleigh. It's called Innovate Raleigh.
Yeah.
Then there's also Wake County Economic Development, and I serve at Wake County Economic Development as the executive director of Equitable Economic Development. But I also serve a dual role at the chamber as vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusivity.
Yeah.
So I started the work in 2018 around equitable economic development, looking at how can we pull together a targeted and intentional support for inclusive prosperity. And inclusive prosperity, if you think about that, it's about how can all residents access the type of growth that we're seeing in our region.
Yeah.
Our region is growing by right under 70 people a day. And we have an incredible knowledge-based economy. We just, announced some amazing new companies coming in. We have Apple that announced, we have, Fuji Films that announced, Amazon a year and a half ago, the distribution center. So we always talk about these big box companies and industries that are drivers to our large, mainstream success.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to ensure that we invest just as much in our small business ecosystem, and specifically our historically underrepresented business ecosystem, because that makes up about 80% of our economy is our small businesses.
Yeah.
So my work in equity, and I tell people all the time, equity is about building bridges or removing barriers.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Building bridges or removing barriers. And I think about this. So Raleigh is growing, to your point, ever so fast. I don't believe the numbers have slowed down in years.
No.
And there are people who leave because they think that, the grass is green on the other side, and they come right back to Raleigh because entrepreneurship is booming. Careers are booming. The housing market is booming. So many things are booming. Now, I want to ask you, and let's touch on this for a moment because of the work that you do. I want to know what you guys have really, you've been doing the work, so this is not new, but what have you really been focusing on with all of the disparities, issues that are happening, especially in 2020 with the George Floyd scenario, and so many others. It's so many, you can't even name them all. So what are some of the things that you're doing to help people from the area of understanding, because we're diverse. The chamber is a diverse group. The people you're working with are a diverse group. So what are some of the things that you're doing through your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll take you back before, May 2020. Let's go back to March of 2019. We launched this infrastructure called the Triangle DEI Alliance, the Triangle Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Alliance, with a vision to accelerate DEI within our business region. As an economic developer, again, within our economic development shop, it's interesting because, when we have companies that want to either relocate or grow into our region, we still get questions about HB2 and that bathroom bill. We get questions about, we're a Southern state. And so there's a stigma of us not being inclusionary for Black and Brown residents. So we still get asked questions because they recognize that they want to these companies want to attract the best and brightest talent, but they want to make sure that the environment isn't exclusive. Right. So we launched the DEI Alliance, recognizing and also promoting the fact that DEI gives us the competitive edge. It's not, we believe we stand on the intersection of it's the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely.
Moral imperative. But at the same time, it makes us better. It actually puts companies in the black, when you have to think about recruiting diverse talent and retention of that talent and diverse supplier pipelines. So the Alliance became a place where we can help companies build their own DEI strategies. And what we've been able to do since then, we offer annual conferences. And I tell folks that the conferences are more like agenda setters, they launch the conversations, they kind of push us forward. But the work of the Alliance is in between those annual conferences. From year to year, we bring together the practitioners of D&I to talk about nuts and bolts of their strategies. We encourage companies to go from statement, when companies started making statements about, we value diversity. But also, to your point, after the murder of George Floyd, there were statements about being anti-racist and about being advocates and allies in this space. And so the Alliance has been able to not only launch that traditional, how do we support you with your strategy, but then also, how do we advocate and educate people about systemic oppression and systemic racism? So we launched an awareness campaign called A Better Wake. And you can go to abetterwake.com, and we're asking companies to sign the commitment in their pledge and also endorse this work towards dismantling systemic racism and trying to figure out how can we support our residents, employees, and community members of color. So I'm really excited about that work, and it's something is continuing.
Yeah, I love that. I have so many thoughts and questions because my brain is just firing off. So two things. Number one, we oftentimes, when it comes to inclusion and diversification, we think often about race, but we don't necessarily focus as much on gender. Now, we do talk about the LGBTQ plus community a little bit more than we talk about the disparity in salary and opportunities and different things like that sometimes, even though Black women, for instance, are and women in general are opening up businesses left and right more than any other community, right? There's still lots of disparities when it comes to the gender gap issue. And so is that something, what is your thought on that? That's one of my questions. And then the next one, really, I know you've been working in this space for a while, but I want to know your thoughts on, it's a good thing. More organizations are now including diversity and inclusion in their business practices, in their professional development practices. Just want to hear your opinion and thoughts on that when you actually saw the shift yourself.
Well, those are two good questions. I'll start with the question about equity, especially around women. Working right now with the county and also Wake Tech on an initiative called Wake Invest in Women. And this initiative is about looking at pay equity. We recognize right now that women are underpaid when compared to their counterparts.
Yeah.
And this is within industries, right? And so we decided to even dig deeper and look specifically in STEM related industries,
That's good.
tech fields and, engineering, architecture. So what we found, data tells us that if we go the rate that we're going now, we will not see pay equity till 2060. Think about that for a second. We will not see equity in pay between men and women doing the same work till 2060. So we have to figure out, how do we accelerate that, right? How do we accelerate that trajectory? So, my opinion is that, not only about, and I love the fact that you said it's not just about race, diversity. We talk about every element that makes us unique, right? From gender to gender identity, to gender expression, to veteran status, to ableism. We have folks that are neurodiverse. We have folks that have levels of disability. So we think about inclusion and diversity different. And Verna Myers, who is a thought leader in DEI, she basically states this. She says diversity is being asked to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance.
Yes.
So we are, in essence, my question is, how do we invite women to the party? But okay, they're here.
Right.
But have they been asked to dance?
Ask me to dance. Right.
That's right. We need to ask you to dance, or better yet, you ask others to dance, right? And that's how we create that inclusion. Maxine Waters says, listen, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So, so for me, I add the equity part, and we've been really pushing this. And that same Verna Myers adage, equity is trying to figure out, how do people get to the party in the beginning? How do you get to the party? You could be invited, but you may not have the opportunity to be asked to dance if you don't have a way to get there.
Right.
So we're having to open up the table more, encourage folks that have positions of influence and power to be advocates and allies in every dimension, in every area. Because this is not just a singular, one way sort of way to address the problem. Now, I will say to your second question, in relationship to when did I see the shift?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my background is in community and youth development. I've been in service for a long time, worked within juvenile justice, worked in nonprofit work, done gang interventions, gang prevention work in communities, mentoring young folk. Did a lot of social reform around raising the juvenile age from 16 to 18. So, done a lot of work in that space. And moving into this space of economics and building economic ecosystems, I'm starting to see, and I will say that June 2020 really was an accelerant for a lot of people, where I started seeing companies that typically would not put themselves in a conversation about any issue related to social justice. Now, I'm not saying companies didn't value it, but to make it a statement, and now they see it just as important as their brand.
Yeah.
And what we did to help accelerate that, this is because I'll tell you, our generation A's, our generation alphas, that's their expectation.
Yeah.
60% of them are buying products and making decisions about where they work based upon the corporate stance on things. The company's position on climate change, the position on social justice.
Yeah, their personal core values are very essential to deciding where they're going to spend their day. I mean, when you think about it, that's how many hours are you spending with this company in a day, and at least 8. So that makes a difference.
It's a huge difference, and one of the things that, again, for our C-suite leaders who are, for the most part, they are baby boomers and, late Gen Z, Gen X's. I'm Gen X. So, we teach the way that we were taught.
Yeah.
And so we just have to reimagine sort of the old way of doing things. So I was able to bring down Matthew McCarthy, who's the CEO of Ben & Jerry's, just to serve as an example of a company that has been able to take their product and then align it with a purpose. And if you are a fan of Ben & Jerry's, you know that they are, they are insanely optimistic about social justice.
Yeah.
And talking about white supremacy and using their, I mean, think about it, it's ice
For a
cream.
while too. Like it's not
No,
a new thing with them.
no, it's not a new thing, you know, and they were well positioned to serve as the gold standard for companies to find. And so getting our CEOs to be able to rub elbows with the Matthew to talk about the value proposition, how it increased efficiency, it increased productivity, it increased retention, and at the same time, there's this reputational equity that comes with doing this. You know, it's not just a checkbox, right? It's a part of our DNA. And so it's been an amazing shift to see in the culture of this work within our corporate and corporate infrastructures and also our business community.
Yeah. And so a word that sticks out to me is consistency, because a lot of times we jump on the bandwagon of things, but we don't consistently stay there. So I would love to see the statistics of companies that are still, if it's even out there, who are still saying that same thing that we're saying back in June of 2020 about their commitment to diversification and inclusion. You know, now that the hype and all of that stuff is kind of died down some, you know, I would love that. But one of the things that I wanted to ask about leadership, because one of the ways that I believe more people are going to understand and also feel like they have a voice is our leaders. And then also with mentorship playing a huge role in that. So I want to ask you, your leader, did you have a mentor along the way that was able to guide you, assist you, or help you to understand who you were, and then also to help you when we were talking about purpose? You were talking about purpose just a second ago, to figure out your core values, and that led you to where you are today and how passionate and involved you are with that. Because after that, I want to talk a bit about youth and fatherhood and influence.
Yeah, well, you know, my father was my first mentor.
Awesome.
My father was a pastor of the AME Zion Church in Farmville, North Carolina.
Oh, Farmville.
Yes, Farmville. And you know, so I had a chance to see you know, a public speaker every Sunday, right? A person who was able to motivate people to want to, you know, do better and be better. And he was a servant leader. And my mother, who was also an incredible servant leader within the education, within schools, you know, again, being able to have the best of both worlds, to see people that give back to the community and see the value of that. So that was my first from, you know, as a person. Professionally, I had a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Patterson, who was at the time the Deputy Secretary for the Department of Juvenile Justice, the only African-American male within the entire C-suite, you know, executive level team. And, I asked him, you know, I was coming straight out of college, had interned at the Attorney General's office, and, you know, I'm looking at make a difference, and said, listen, you know, I've never been in a position like this. I've never, you know, worked in the office, never worked in this space. So I would love to just gain your wisdom, right? Just to be near you. And he took an active role in shaping how I was as a professional, how I wear my tie, the type of suit jacket I wore. I mean, he would tell me never come into a meeting empty-handed. He gave me this a sense of you know, one, if I work really, really hard, but I also had to position myself in conversations. I had to speak up. I had to be willing. And I will say also, another one of my mentors who was, you know, wasn't as active as Dwayne Patterson was, just because I worked alongside him, was actually Dr. Cornell West, who I met when I was seeking to be a law student. And he gave me some of the most amazing advice. I was doing a conflict resolution conference down in Boston, or up in Boston. And he was meeting with a bunch of brothers that wanted to go to law school. And after that meeting, I said, you know, I went to him, I said, I really don't think I want to be a lawyer. Like the way he talked about it, he said, and he was talking about using law as a way to litigate and in reference to dealing with, you know, social justice issues. And he used law as a powerful tool in changing laws, policies, and stuff. But I saw myself in more community development. And so I just told him, I said, I don't feel like this is for me. And this is what he told me. He said, young brother, what do you love? And I told him, you know, I love mentoring. I love working in the community. And he said, well, this is what you do. He said, you need to do two things as you strive for this and to put yourself in a position of authority. He said, and put your position of authority means that you can influence decision makers.
Right.
He says, read any and everything that nobody else wants to read. And then being able to take that information and make it palatable, make it useful to the practitioner.
Absolutely.
So that was the first thing. The second thing was, whatever your goal is, whomever you're trying to to impact, make sure you stay connected and invested in them. Make sure that you stay with them. So if you're trying to impact young people, make sure you're always around young people, making sure that you're still mentoring young people. You're connected to people that work with young people. You can't change a policy without understanding the why.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that had been just a standard that I've been using for my entire life.
I love that. And I'm glad that you shared those nuggets, because people need to hear that. That's good information to transfer. And I think about the people who are asking now, who didn't get that sort of mentorship. They have to pay for everything, it seems, these days.
Yeah.
And so that coach or that mentor that came alongside, that person that poured into you, that said, I'll help you without any reservations. You don't owe me anything. I just want to pour back. Where I wonder what people are wondering, where are those people now? And so that's the thing that we have to do. Those of us who got poured into, like yourself, and that's what I see you're doing too. I know you have a salary, but I know you also pour out of your time into organizations and so forth and so on, and everything isn't about $1. So that's one of the things discussions that I think could be had too. Like, where are the people that are saying, hey, I'll mentor, and not trying to get paid every week with their plan. And then I'm a mentor and a coach, but I do a lot of pouring out. I guess I'll say pro bono, because I also got that to your point. So where are they? We got to be them.
For me, to be honest with you, and I think it may be generational. I think what most folks will say is that you have to ask, because if you don't ask and advocate for yourself, then how does someone know that you want to be mentored, right? Or that you need that coaching. And so, I tell my son, all the time, you have to advocate for yourself. If there's something that you don't know, you have to seek somebody that knows how to do it, and then advocate for them to help. Hey, listen, if it's not just for a conversation, can you help me get from here to here? And so there's a level of somewhat of entitlement where it's almost like I'm owed the mentorship, right? And that's dangerous, I think, because that's not good energy, one. But two, you don't realize what you're missing by just being humble and saying, I don't know something. And I see somebody that knows where I want to be. How can I go ask and connect and learn and be an apprentice, and have expectations that immediately is not going to be what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. Those are elements that I think there's so many different intersections of why I think, some people aren't getting the connectivity that they've had in the past. But to your point, folks have also commodified it. So, I know that, there's obvious people that are paying a pretty penny for life coaches, and for supporters and some of the wonderful work that you're doing. So I think it's to each his own, but I know that I was taught to give back, and I wish I had, in all honesty, I wish I had more time. I'm not able to say yes to everybody.
For sure.
Ask, and it breaks my heart to not be able to, but at a minimum, I'll say I can offer up a conversation. I can offer up some coffee to talk and give you what I have right now. But I mentor 4 boys right now up in Corning, New York. And I've invested a day a week to meet with them for an hour. And every week we meet for over lunch. And I wish I can give that kind of time to a lot of different people.
But I mean, it was a great point that you made. They do have to be advocates for themselves, and sometimes it's just not asking that hinders us. But then, like you said, some have commodified it, so maybe it's a new look for them to say, what can I do to pour into others as well, as that group that I'm targeting to get of course, my ends, my salary, my bills getting paid. And so as we wrap up, I want to just ask, you mentioned being a father, you mentioned having a son, and I just want to ask, as a father, especially in the role that you're in, what are some of the things that you share with your son? Do you take him to any of these different events or things that you're doing in the community to show him how to serve? We already found out that you're pouring into the lives of some young men over in New York. But what is it that you're doing in the home that maybe a dad that's listening, that's really trying to build his business or career, that's trying to figure and sort this thing out, you can give them some ideas based on what you're doing, knowing that every day is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a 15-year-old, so I've had 15 years of feeling like I haven't done enough.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is one modeling,
Mm-hmm.
modeling what my expectations are for him, not only his approach to work and having a work ethic, but also his approach in relationships and how he deals with whomever he's going to love in the future.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I try to do is, make sure that my network is an extension of his network. So I may not have all the information. So I make sure that, Uncle Pat, Uncle Vince, the barbershop, Uncle Lamont, who runs the barbershop, I say he's not just cutting hair, he's running a business, making sure that he is connected and he has access to them to ask questions as he's growing. And so as he's starting to model what he's going to be, what I try to do, I just expose him in any way, that I can with what's going on, not just professionally and meeting, folks within the chamber, going to events, seeing us through the community, but again, to small business owners that like, hey, you got a bottle of water here, right? And that didn't just come out of thin air.
Right.
Let's talk about how did it get there, and let's create some level of understanding finances and being financially literate. And one thing that I always employ him, and I mentioned to you earlier, my entrepreneurship is my service. But I've been pushing my son to look at starting his own business. I told him, I say, listen, your overhead is nil. You don't you don't pay for nothing. This is the best time to start a business and fail because you don't have to worry about where you're going to live. You don't have to worry about getting food on the table. So start your business. And so having conversations about passive lines of income, and those are all real cool conversations to have. And you think sometimes you're talking to a brick wall, but when you hear somebody else within the network say the same thing and then a light bulb pops up, I try to also do jigsaw book readings with them where we'll read a book together. You read chapter 1, I read 2, you read 3, and we'll talk to each other about it. And with
such a great idea.
And with podcasts and movies and YouTube these days, I mean, it's even if you don't have enough time to get into a book, go check out. We're about to watch Malcolm X, the Denzel Washington version. And talk about activism from his perspective. Then we'll go watch Selma, talk about activism from Dr. Martin Luther King's perspective. And just to keep the conversation going. And there's a lot of little things I've learned. I'm not a great father, but I've learned from a lot of great men, a lot of great men that
so
are doing
humble. I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are a great father.
Ma'am.
So
we can go ask them right now. I can hear them in there playing Fortnite. So
well, it sounds like you're doing some great things and implementing some great initiatives. So somewhere along the way, I know he's going to grab hold and become an amazing person. I would love to see the entrepreneurship develop. And I reach out to you like, Danya, what's up with your son? Did he develop the business so that I can support it? I really believe in supporting youth entrepreneurs. So at my Christmas shopping or birthdays, anniversaries, whatever, I'm trying to reach out to these youth and say, hey, what you got? So I can buy your product as opposed to the store or what have you. So I really love supporting youth entrepreneurship. So please let me know. We could talk all day because I have so many things that I could ask you about just because I love the way that you articulate things, the way that you think. You really take your time in explaining layers of things because life does have layers. So I could do this all day. This show is a lot about accountability. And so is there anything that we could keep you accountable to in this 2021 year?
Yes. Well, please keep me accountable to the fact that, this is a marathon. And, I do come across with a optimistic sense of urgency that, we need to do it. We need to have done it yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I need to be held accountable to find grace in my partners, to recognize that, that dysfunction and inequalities and inequities weren't created overnight.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. Sir Isaac Newton said that if I can see further, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And so
Yeah.
I just need to be reminded that my goal is to prepare my shoulders for the person or the people that will be standing on my shoulders to then see further. So that I would certainly appreciate any level of accountability on that.
That's so good. That's such a good thing to, ask for accountability, because we all need to understand that there is a process in all things. And I get what you're saying. So definitely I will. And you know how people do, like, how is Danya doing? You never know that one person that heard that it really stuck with them and they reach back out and ask about a person. So that's
Please
why I
do.
do that. Well,
If you
thank you.
see me, call me out, please.
Absolutely. Same thing here. Like, I would have to send you my whole long list. No, but no, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for adding those tips and nuggets for fathers. And then the rest of the conversation that we've had. You guys, the Chamber is an organization, Raleigh Chamber, for those who are in this area to stay plugged into. And Danya is the person who is working very hard over there, especially the Chamber supports small businesses and businesses in the Raleigh area. So I'm excited to have been able to spend this time with you. You guys make sure to follow us, coffeeandcollaborations.com, at Coffee and Collaborations on Facebook and Instagram, and then also Coffee and Collaborations Media on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. Have an amazing rest of your day. And remember that the coffee is optional, the physical coffee, but the collaboration is essential to your win, which is the whole reason for Coffee and Collaborations. We have to work together, one to another, to be a light in the community so we can do great things that trickle down and spread a message of hope, love, care, and concern to others who need it. Have an amazing rest of your Monday and an amazing rest of your week. See you next time.